Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. This episode is brought to you by Boombox Gifts, memory boxes filled with personal messages and photos from friends and family for your next special occasion. Check it out at boomboxgifts.com. I'm really excited to be interviewing Biz Owens today. Biz is a former stand-up comic and corporate event planner. She now co-hosts the comedy podcast that happens to be about parenting called One Bad Mother. She, along with her co-host Theresa Thorn, wrote a parenting, sort of, advice book. You're doing a great job, 100 Ways You're Winning at Parenting. Her sister, Helen Ellis, by the way, is the author of Southern Lady Code and American Housewife, and she also recently came on my podcast. Biz currently lives in Pasadena, California, with her husband and 2 children, so welcome to Biz. Welcome, Biz. Thanks so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books.
Thank you so much for having me.
So how did you get the name Biz? I have to start with that.
All right. So my real name's Elizabeth, and I got the nickname at summer camp. And there are 2 competing stories as to why I was given a name Biz at summer camp. I will stick with the nicer one, in which a guy named Matt Johnson, his little niece couldn't pronounce Elizabeth, so she would say Biz to his cousin. So that's why he claimed they called me Biz. And then I moved to the school where all those people were. And I just walked in the door with the name Biz. And then no matter how hard I try and maybe change it, somebody inevitably calls or sees me and says, "Hey, Biz." And then everybody around me goes, "Biz." And then, so now that I've got kids, I had to start a whole new email and all this stuff, because I was like, I'm 45. I'm doing preschool and elementary school stuff. I'm not sure I want to go by Biz at the PTA or any of that. So, I try to keep my lives separate. The other story is just that we get busy at camp. Don't tell anybody!
Oh my gosh, you're so funny. Well, I have a similar story. My real name is also Elizabeth. And
is it?
Yeah.
That's great.
And one girl in my playgroup who ended up being my maid of honor actually for my first wedding couldn't call me Elizabeth and called me Zibbeth, and my parents shortened it to Zibby. And like you, it seems to have stuck, and I cannot get rid of it. So anyway.
Yeah, well, it's good for the podcast, persona. Because then if you're somewhere and you want to be Elizabeth, people might not, link it. Yeah.
Yeah. Can go incognito.
Incognito.
So tell me I want to hear all about your podcast, One Bad Mother, and also your book, which is so fantastic. But let's start with the book. So in your book, you say right away that it is not designed to make parents feel bad. And you feel, other books might make parents feel bad even when they try to give us advice. Why do you think this happens? Talk to me about that.
Did you? Okay, you have 4 children.
I do.
I know this about you. So you may have experienced this. I really felt like a lot of the books I read with my first child made me feel not necessarily comforted or confident about what was about to happen. A lot of books also made you feel like if you were nervous about it, then you were probably doing it wrong.
Right.
And then after I had my daughter, Katie Bell, and even Ellis, I just felt like I kept running into all these situations that were never spoken about in a book. Theresa, who co-hosts the show with me, she and I would come in and start talking about something, and more than once we'd say, "Why is this not in a book?" No book ever told me my kid was going to poop in the tub at some point in time. And that's how I was supposed to respond to that.
Right.
No one, told me that, they're going to cry at night, but that it might go on forever. Right. There's always that book that's just let them, cry and they'll stop. But what if you have the kid that just never stops? Or what if that instinctually doesn't fit with your instincts of how you want to parent? And so we just were realizing that books tended to make you feel like you shouldn't trust your instincts, and there was only one way to do it. And of course, there were a million books, so there were a million different ways you were supposed to do it.
Yeah.
And the reality, all the ways are actually fine. Whatever works, you should do it. And so we just wanted to make a book that reminded you, no matter how you were doing it, if it was working, good job. You've done it. You discovered how to parent. That's basically why we made the book.
That's great and so refreshing. I mean, everybody needs that. Even just like telling you, like, all the little things, like some of the things you point out in your book. First of all, waking up, great job. And
see, that should be it. We should be done for the day.
That's it. Surviving a baby shower in which your cake was shaped like a vagina.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for putting that in your book.
So, do that.
Are there some things that moms do well that you think they don't get enough credit for?
Yeah, moms and parents, everybody who've got children, I just don't think there's so much about what we do every day that is completely unacceptable to talk about anywhere, right? Like it's the most mundane things become so important. Like I decided I wasn't going to battle meals and foods with my second child. Okay. I just decided it wasn't working. It was super unpleasant and I was miserable. So the other day I actually, for the first time, he's 5, my daughter's 9. I made a garlic lemon pesto that I knew he liked. And my daughter tried it and liked it. And for the first time ever, all 4 of us ate the same meal. Okay. It was amazing. Like I felt like this pure joy and elation come through me. Now, who am I going to tell? Okay. Like I can't go to work and be like, guys, guess what? Everybody ate the same thing today. People would be like, what's wrong with you? And that's not how I was raised and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I just feel like it's those little tiny moments that no one seems to care about. And I think those are the ones that it's those sort of hidden secret levels of parenting that Theresa and I both talk about all the time are just so overlooked. And I think that's one of the hardest things about parenting. I just, every time I see somebody with kids and groceries, I just think, you did it. You just did that. Good job.
My husband and I were on an airplane last night and this woman was by herself with a toddler and the car seat and the stroller and the whole thing. And I was like, can I help you? Can I help you? And she's like, I'm okay, but thank you. And she's walking down the aisle and I was like, it gets easier. And my husband was just like, well, every mom, you just have to talk to every mom. And I was like, well, I just have to let her know,
Okay, you're here. You can change your mind and I will still help you.
Totally. I feel like, oh my gosh. Yeah. The other day, both my kids ate the scrambled eggs without complaining that I made for breakfast, my 2 older kids. And even that, I was like, do you know how much it means to me when you both eat it? I know scrambled eggs, I do this every morning, but it just makes me feel so good. So anyway, your book is so validating. So thanks. You have this funny part too in Partnered Parents. You write, you didn't choose to have, this is about your relationship and sort of, you didn't choose a total jerk to have this family with. Good job. Having a kid puts tons of pressure on everyone. That means you might sometimes experience anger, confusion, or resentment toward the person with whom you chose to make a family. But if you think back to the person whom you chose to say, I do, or sure you can move in, or it's okay, we don't need a condom, or whatever, that person wasn't a total jerk. They were pretty good. They are pretty good. They're just tired and stressed right now, and so are you. Neither of you are jerks. I love that. So talk to me about dealing with partners and kids. Do you have any secret sauce? Any tips, any just worth commiserating about?
Therapy.
Yeah.
That helps a lot. Yeah. I think Theresa and I have done some shows about resentment a couple of times. And, one of our mantras is you didn't marry an asshole. So though some people did, all right? We don't want to say, you know what? Sometimes you wake up and you realize you did, and then we got to take steps and take care of that. But in a partnered parent situation in which everything seemed to be okay, I feel like 2 things sort of happened. The first level that we sort of discovered happening was if you are a mom and you are the primary caregiver, the moment your partner isn't takes over, all right, I'll take the baby for the walk or whatever. We basically set it up so that we don't allow them to fail, despite we fail all the time. We've all gone out without the diaper. We've all gone out without the socks or the hats or the keys or the credit card or whatever. And no one is shaming us, right? But the moment, like, poor Stefan, my husband would take Katie Bell out without a hat, I'd be like, you forgot the hat. It's like, you're a monster. As opposed to just shutting up and letting them discover parenting the way that they need to parent. Like, it's really hard. And usually usually me, that has to be like, I don't have to say anything. And like, I discovered recently, now that my daughter's 9, he and she got into like one of their first like total fights. Okay. And now we're not a yelling house, but I mean, as much as we are, they were having that kind of morning fight. And Ellis, the 5-year-old, screaming and crying. And it's the day he's got to take both of them to school. So it's like, I'm just loading crying children into his car. And, he was yelling and later my mind was like, oh, you stepped in that. All you had to do was just not say anything. I had all this advice for him. And then instead of saying any of that, I just said, I love you. You're doing a really good job. That's all I texted him. And because I knew he knew.
That's so nice. Yeah.
If I was standing around thinking about it all, I'm sure he did too. Yeah. Because I didn't marry a jerk. Right. So, I think that's like a really hard thing. And the only other thing I would say is that, like, I think sometimes when we're so busy, at least for us, I'll sit on stuff for a long time before I say anything, and then I'll explode. Mm-hmm. And I know, so for me, if I don't sit on it, if I say it right away, that seems to really help. And I don't have to have a solution, like, before I tell him what's going on. So that's, I mean, like, that, and if all you've got is remembering to yourself, he's not an asshole, he's not an asshole, she's not an asshole, she's not an asshole, then we're okay. Then I think that sometimes that's the best we can do.
I think that should be your new series of shirts.
I didn't marry an asshole.
I didn't marry an asshole.
Right, just like an arrow that's like, I'm not with an asshole.
Right. He's not an asshole arrow. Yeah. That's so funny. So you started One Bad Mother in 2013. Tell me about what made you start this podcast. I know you were a stand-up comic before, and you originally said it was a podcast that happens to be about parenting, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about how it got started.
So I was living in New York with my daughter and Stefan, and like I used to be cool. Like I did stand up and sketch and out at night, and like, I was reading cool things on the subway and like, smoking cigarettes, and like, I was so cool. And then I had this kid, and I suddenly did not feel cool at all. And in fact, I am still 9 years in having a real struggle with identity. And I started looking around, and I just felt like there was nothing out there that validated that I used to be a person. And like everything at the time, there weren't podcasts, there were just like blogs and stuff. And so everything was just these picture perfect experiences. And I enjoyed looking at those. They were great, but it wasn't the experience I was having. And then we moved to LA, and Stefan and Theresa's husband, Jesse Thorn, were like, you guys would probably really hit it off. And we were both like, we have small children, we're tired, we don't want to make new friends. So like, but we did. And we started walking together. We started doing walks together. And I told her about the idea, and she liked it. And then I realized she should co-host it with me because we did nothing alike. We really approached parenting super differently. And I thought, well, that might also be a good element for a show that's out there, like not just showing perfection, but showing that we can both feel strongly about our different choices, but still be friends and like still be okay. This was like knee deep in the mommy war stuff, which I don't think is a real thing. I think it's just made us decided to make us all mad at each other. But yeah, so I just wanted to create something cool for people and something honest. And what's been really great is that Theresa and I have actually become friends on the show. Like, we weren't friends before the show started. And so it's been really interesting talking about these different experiences we're having as parents. We're not I say we're not a parenting podcast because nothing we say could be really helpful and followed at all. We just want to talk about like, once you become a parent, people forget about you. And we just wanted to be like, well, no, we're people and we're really growing as well. We're really struggling too. And it's not so much about the kid, but it's how we're reacting to our children and how our children are making us feel.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's what the podcast is wound up being about. Just being as honest as we possibly can without ruining our children's lives by sharing too much.
And now, of course, podcasts have like exploded.
Oh, yeah. They're like, yeah.
You're like in the right place at the right time. You should be like giving each other high fives every day.
I know, except we listed ourselves under comedy on iTunes. And so now there's like a million parenting podcasts. And like, we're just like, no, we're like, hey, we're comedy podcasts. Like, people don't know how to find it.
I know. It is crazy how you have to define yourself in these limited categories in the beginning. It's like,
I know.
I was debating too, parenting or arts and culture. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, it's hard.
Right? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it's nice because people don't always, I feel like parenting, the way you think about it sometimes does feel prescriptive. Like this is going to be a class or this is something I need to know. And I think a lot of moms, when they just want to break, would gravitate to comedy. So I think you made the right call.
Okay.
Wait, tell me what you said a minute ago, that you're still struggling with your identity and that's still something that you are dealing with. Tell me a little about that because I'm sure everyone can relate.
No, I've never felt 100% like a mom, whatever that's supposed to be. Like, there are days where, I've got one foot in motherhood, one foot in work, one foot in social, which is... Sorry, social, that went right out the door. One foot in just trying to reconnect to anything I once really enjoyed as who I used to be. And then having to discover that having my feet in so many places isn't good. And I may not want all the things I used to have, like whatever I used to be that may not be who I should be now. It's like we did a show recently on haircuts. And it's like, I recently got a haircut that was an awesome haircut 5 years ago. And I got it again. Shaved side, full over. And I was like, whoa! As soon as they did it, I was like, wow, that is not who I am anymore. That doesn't look right on me anymore. Like, now I just look like old mom with weird haircut. And like, it totally represents how I feel all the time. Like, okay, I'm going to get back into such and such. And then I start trying to do it and I'm like, maybe I don't like this anymore. Like I don't think any of us step into motherhood really like easily. I mean, everything changes. You're supposed to be this other person. Everybody sees you as another person, whether you wanted them to or not. You suddenly have these people in your life that need you. So, and you instinctually want to take care of them. There's that partner possibly around that you would like to connect with, or maybe you're solo parenting, you're a single parent and you're, trying to remember what any relationship would be, great to have. Maybe you adopted kids and boom, they just pop up. They just show up in your house. There's no warning in the adoption world sometimes, or the fostering world. And then you're stuck being like, who am I? And I just, I'm still not there. I'm still not. There's some days that I'm like, yeah, I am a mom. And then there are other days where I'm like, I am. Don't use that word around me. Like, man, I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
So do you feel like, no, it sounds like mom to you means like you just, it just does not jive with anything else. Like that I feel like mom to you is something very conservative or traditional or something else that you are.
No, that's a great way to put it, because that is, it's whatever my connection is with the word mom. I mean, there are.
Is that what your mom was like?
No, mom, she let, I think Helen Michelle said it best, who was on your show recently, mama and papa, raised us to be, feminists in a time where that was just kind of becoming something okay in the deep South. And I often am like, how did she do this? She went to law school when I started first grade. I mean, that's intense. And, it wasn't that traditional, but I think probably for me, when I think of mom, I think of all the like restrictions that media and imagery put on mom. And then we feed into that ourselves, with the internet. My mom didn't have the internet. She didn't have Facebook and Instagram and, perfection or Land of Nod catalogs coming, like making you feel like, God, if I just painted everything white, my children would be so happy and want to play in that room, like
with a teepee and a
teepee,
yeah.
Right? Which is like, I'm like, how are they still selling teepees? Those aren't okay. Like, just like, it is true. I feel like, and I think what I'm wrestling with and still working on, thank you therapy, is connecting those two for me. Is connecting, what mom means to me with who I am. And I feel like now that my kids are out of infancy and toddlerdom and preschooldom and they're like kids, I feel like, at least for me, there's some breathing room suddenly to like have the time to try and make that connection again. And I think the trick is allowing ourselves the time to do that, because I don't think we give ourselves a lot of time as parents.
Right. And also that it doesn't have to be so black and white.
Right. Yeah. That's hard. That's hard to
That's hard
out.
too. Yeah, I know.
Black and white.
No, I'm the same way. I get it. I don't know. I feel like these days there's so many types of moms. Like it's not the way it was with the 1950s beautiful skirts. And I feel like mom today, I mean, look at you. You're like, we're on Skype for listeners, but you just got this like massive tattoo on your arm, which is like so badass, really. I mean, it's like, you're your own mom. I think it's awesome. It's like,
well, thank you. I can do the tattoo and then I can make a beautiful bunny cake for Easter.
I'm sure you can. Anyway, enough of my prying through your inner psyche here. Anyway, do you have any advice from your experience? Moms who are worrying that they are just not doing a good job, the moms out there who are similarly feeling victorious when, someone goes down for a nap or the tantrum ends or some, bad mood is redirected. Do you have any advice for them?
Just that they are doing a good job. I feel like so we have a hotline that on the show that people can call, and they can call and leave a genius moment, which would be the like everybody ate or my kid slept for 15 minutes. Like you can also leave fails. That would be everything from I did all my grocery shopping and realized I didn't have my credit card, or I left with milk in the bottom of the stroller. We've all done that. I dropped the baby. You know what I mean? Like babies have fallen off of changing tables, and we have all like accidentally like, the car seat has wobbled, or, oh my God, I just got somewhere and realized I didn't buckle the kid in. And I can say that because we get about 300 to 400 calls a month, and I hear the same things over and over and over. And, while when we make those failures, it can feel like, we've really done something horrible and we shouldn't even be allowed to be parents. The reality is everybody's actually okay and you're okay. And no one's really watching. No one's really watching. It feels like everybody's watching, but they really aren't watching. And probably 10 other people have done that like today, right? It's so rare to hear like a fail come in that's like stunningly original, right? And so I think the good thing to remember is just you are doing a good job. Tell other parents you see out there that they're doing a good job. It feels weird at first, but then it gets kind of normal. And the more you say it, the more you feel it. That's like something we've discovered on the show, that it's just like we're just all really tired, guys. It's all, you actually are doing a really remarkable job if you got up and got everybody where they needed to go, including yourself, and there you have pants on. You've done it. You did it. You did it. So, it's just be nice to yourself.
I love that. I love the being nice to others too. That's really nice.
Yeah, no, it's I feel like, I'll rant us off track so quickly, but like, man, I don't know when it came around that we're supposed to not support each other as parents, but that is, I call garbage on that. That is insane. We got to stop it. But that's not something we're supposed to be doing.
I agree. Throw out the competitive, these competitive moms. It's like the death of me, seriously. So
I know. It's just like, ugh. Yeah.
What about advice to aspiring authors now that you have this fantastic book out there, which is hilarious and helpful and everything else?
Don't have a lot of advice. I mean, Theresa, and I mean, you had my sister on. She's a writer. She is, so amazing at that. I make jokes. And I feel like for Theresa and I think what helped us when we wrote this was committing to time. I mean, and that's the thing I hear from people who come on the show too. Just make the commitment to meet or write or whatever it is that you're trying to create and commit to it. I personally could never have done it if I hadn't had a partner to write the book with. Like if there wasn't somebody I had to be beholden to, that book would never have been written. Just not in the last 9 years. So I think it's just committing to a time and trying to stick with it and putting yourself first to do it.
Awesome.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, you did it. So, you're one step ahead of the people who didn't do it. So,
That's right. It's done. And I did it. And it was really a lot of fun to do it.
Great job.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books and sharing all of your thoughts and everything. And thanks for your great podcast and the book and everything.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on to ours. And it was a pleasure. The show it's really great for those of us who really don't have time to read it and want to help us find what we're looking for. So thank you.
Oh, thanks.
You are doing a very good job.
Oh, thank you. All right. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, Biz. This episode has been brought to you by Boombox Gifts, memory boxes filled with personal messages and photos from friends and family for your next special occasion. Boomboxgifts.com. Thanks to Ryan and Steve at Texture Sound for the audio editing and mixing. Thanks for listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books.